Welcome to today's career class, partnering with York University. We're glad to have a number of you joining us today as far as our alumni partnership program with York, and we're excited about our ability to think about these topics around career development, career management, and how to have the right career and to be smarter about that. And our whole goal at CareerJoy is work made better. So glad to have you here today. Just take a couple minutes to explain a little bit about the technical parameters around today's workshop. So we're glad to have such a great turnout. You noticed on your box, on your desktop there, that you'll notice there's a couple ways to interface with us. You'll notice everyone is muted. The reason we do that is because we have a tremendous amount of people joining us today, and there'll just be lots of background noise. And I'm sure you wouldn't like that. It would really impact the quality of the webinar. So there's a couple ways to enter the conversation, and this is really important for us to join the conversation, have you join the conversation. One is through the hands up. So if you want to give me a hands up just to make sure that you can see the screen fine and hear me fine. Okay, great. Just to make sure that that's good. So just give me hands up on that. The second way you can interface today is you'll notice that there is a question box here. Now the interesting thing about the question box is I'm the only one who can see that, so no one else can see it. So in case you're wondering if your boss, your neighbor, your dog walker, that's one of you here, this is totally confidential and private. So if you just want to take a minute to introduce yourself and where you're joining us from in the question box, that would be great. The other purpose of that is obviously you have an opportunity of entering the conversation and asking questions through the webinar and sharing the conversation and joining that. So from time to time, I'm going to ask you to interface or to participate through hands up or through questions, so feel free to do that. Now, I may not be able to answer all the questions that come in on a continual basis just to kind of keep the flow, but I will do my darndest to participate and make sure that I'm paying attention to that box and making sure that I'm going to address that at some point. I may not address it right away, by the way, but I may address the question later. And if you didn't feel like I addressed the question, then feel free to ask it again because it'll pop up in the screen again. So terrific. So my name is Kearns, and I'm the founder and head coach of CareerJoy. And a little bit about my background. I'm actually educated as an optician, and I went through my own journey here of figuring out how to get the right career right now. So this is something that I've lived myself, of transitioning and making what I call a complete career evolution or revolution. And I spent a number of years doing that. And in the country now, I speak right across the country on different events and in different webinars and with different clients. And we work with this whole topic of thinking about your career and thinking about how to make that better and what that looks like. So we both work with individuals thinking through this and organizations. We have a number of corporate clients that we work with coast to coast, helping to think about how to make work better, what it is to do leadership, what it is to do career development, what it means if you're even restructuring, how we can help in different ways. So different formats we can help with this. And I also was a recruiter, a headhunter for a number of years. So I also come at this perspective in a very applied mode. So CareerJoy came out of a recruiting company that I owned at one point. And we recognized that many people had many questions on what the right career is and job hunting and resume and all these sorts of things. And so this conversation we're having today is embedded in very deep and practical application. So unlike maybe sort of a typical career counseling firm, which is more about counseling, what I call counseling and what color are you or things like that, our model is much more the applied model, much more practical and applied. So I'm hoping to share with you today some principles that can help you think about what the right career is, how to manage your career, and how to be smarter about this. And really what we would determine is raising career literacy. You know, I love what Terry O'Reilly says here, that Terry O'Reilly, I don't know, how many of you, put up your hands, are familiar with the work of Terry O'Reilly and the Age of Persuasion? Yeah, a number of you are, yeah. And he's deeply passionate about raising the awareness of how marketing plays out as consumers and how it impacts our decision making and how we can be a more informed consumer and make better choices as a result. And my passion is very similar, but in a different way. That one of the things we learn, or where do we learn how to have greater career literacy? And what I mean by that is literacy is a knowledge point of knowing how to make better decisions and be more informed and understanding LinkedIn and branding and all these sorts of things that play out in our world. And what I've discovered in my 20-odd years of doing this, both as a recruiter and running CareerJoy, is your success is directly related to your career literacy. That the more literate you are about the world of work and politics and persuasion and these types of things, the more successful you'll be in your work situation. So really, CareerJoy and York have partnered with to help raise the literacy level of you as graduates and alumnus, so that you can be more informed, more effective, and make better decisions around this topic. Many people ask us, what does CareerJoy mean? And the name really means this concept, and it's both a concept and a philosophy. A career is a point where a career is an ongoing journey. So you graduate from university, it's an ongoing phase, and particularly in today's world where there's lots and lots of choices and lots of directions you can go. So we've worked with many clients who started direction out of York and maybe were a lawyer or in finance or in marketing, and then went a completely direction, because that's the way our world is that the world of work is changing. It's progress. And it's a concept of it's a continuum. It's not a start. It's stop and start. There's a start when you graduate from university and stop when you end. It's this ongoing scenario. And joy doesn't mean that every day you wake up and you love what you do. I don't mean that. What I mean by that is that there's a keen sense of alignment with who you are, and that there's something you appreciate out of it, which is bigger than yourself, and it literally does. And so what I've discovered is, how do most people go about choosing career? So we all have to work for a living. Even if you have a trust fund, you're going to be more fulfilled if you're contributing to this world in some sort of format. And what I've discovered is there's 3 key ways that people choose the right career, or choose a career, not necessarily the right career. And sometimes it turns into the right career, but often not. So what have I discovered about how most people choose this concept of a journey, or what career they choose? Well, number 1 is market. That many people choose a career path based upon current market conditions. So you'll read in the newspaper about oil prices are really high, and we really need oil engineers, and we really need people in the oil and gas industry, and we really need people in this area. And all of a sudden, you see a bunch of people go to university, or go to college, or go to programs that are related to oil and gas. And they're making that decision primarily on market conditions, primarily on where market demand is. And you see this in technology and in other areas, or in law, or in healthcare, based on market conditions. How many of you put up your hands, made your decision of which major to go into, or which career path to go to, based upon market conditions? That you would say, that was primary driver for me choosing the current career I'm at, was based upon the market conditions of when I joined. Okay, when I was going to university. Okay. The secondary issue that I see is people make decisions based upon money, economic decisions. And it could be broader than just money. And what I mean by this is it could be security, that they choose a path, maybe particularly in public sector or in certain areas where there is economic security, and there's a sensibility that I will make a very good living at this. How many of you honestly would say that that was a primary decision-making, that was primary, your big decision in choosing what career path you want? It was related to money. It was related to economic security. Put up your hands, those of you that thought, okay, a big part of it. And okay, good. The other one that I see is, the third one that I see is momentum. What do I mean by that? Well, an example of a person, one of our clients we know, who graduated with a general arts degree and was trying to figure out what to do with that. And her boyfriend decided to apply for law school and wrote his LSATs. And she thought, well, I could do that too, for 2 reasons. I'd like to see if I'm smarter than him. And second of all, I have a general arts degree, and law sounds like a potential path. And even though I don't want to be a lawyer, it'll take me a direction. So she did that. She wrote her LSAT. She actually did get a higher score than her boyfriend at the time. She got into law school. She thought, what the heck? It sounds like a good idea. She graduated from law school. She wanted to article. And literally 15 years later, she came to us and said, I'm about to be made a partner in a Bay Street law firm. How the heck did I get here? How did I end up here? How did this happen? And that was what I call momentum. It just one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. And there wasn't really a real deep insight or foresight into it. It was more just momentum. It was just one thing led to another. How many of you would say that you're currently in your career where you are right now based on momentum, that just one thing led to another, that And yeah, it's interesting, majority of you. And that's what I see, is that most people end up in their situation through momentum. It just kind of happens. It's not bad. It just happens through circumstances. And the world of work is fairly efficient that way. There's a moving, a conveyor belt, right, along the way. So what do I propose? Well, what we see in the ramifications or the manifestations of this is you see when you look at sources of regret around life, that the two greatest sources of regret that people have around life are, number one, around romance and family. And I'm not the marriage coach, I don't deal with that. But the second area of regrets, about 25% of professionals regret their choice of educational career path or their career. How many of you, knowing what you know about yourself now, would say that you probably would have made different decisions based upon the information that you have about yourself now, and that there's some sort of regret around the choices you made? Yeah, a big part of you, about the same actually, about 20. So the other thing we see is, is reset. Why is this important? Well, it's important, one, because our quality of life and our work are related. So I think our quality of work is directly related, and our life are directly interrelated. So your higher quality of work, the better your relationships are, the better your finances are, the better your health is. There's all kinds of substantive, good statistical support to show that quality of life is directly related to our choice of work, right? The second reason I think this question is important is very practically, and I call this the economic reset. That we are currently in a deep and evolving reset button of our economy at many, many levels, including science and media and government and all areas. And what this means is there's a substantive amount of change going on in the world of work. Because what are those changes that are happening? Well, number one, we're seeing companies go up and down really, really quickly. So you're seeing, companies that are really, really popular and really, really successful grow and then ungrow. So I call that the RIM principle. It's a good example of this, right? RIM goes from a leading competitor, hiring thousands and thousands of people, to 2 years later laying off, 2/3 of its workforce, right? So very, very quick, much quicker than our parents' generation. The second major shift you're seeing in our economy is this concept of the public sector. That in the public sector world, there isn't the same sort of economic engagement or the same amount of growth or the same amount of commitment longer term to keeping employees on and what that looks like. And this is happening at a global level. It's not just happening in Canada. You're seeing it in the U.S., Europe, and all kinds of places where the public sector is not growing at the same rate, and it's changing the way that it's going about the world of work. The third major shift you're seeing is in globalization. You know that approximately 50 million university graduates are coming, are graduating into the workforce every year out of China and China and India. And this is just in, I'm talking about professionals. I'm not talking about people working on factories and things like this. So the world of work is shifting, and companies are redirecting where they grow, where they hire. So you're seeing major companies like IBM and other PricewaterhouseCoopers and these major players that are still growing in North America and still growing in Canada, but nowhere at the same rate as they are in other countries. And they're able to get talent and do that everywhere. And that relates to another theme, fourth theme, which is around technology. The fact that work can be done anywhere, anytime, and the fact that we're in a 24 cycle, and you're seeing organizations that have employees in India, and then overnight they do the work in India, and then it comes back to North America in the morning, and that the project is worked on basically on a 24 cycle, right? So complete shift in the world of work. The other major shift, and another major shift, is the use of contract workers. Now, how many of you are currently or know or have been on a contract in your journey, that you're not what I call quote quote full time, but you're on a temporary contract? Yeah, so that's another shift, right? These are the third largest employers globally, and more people are working what I call the entertainment model, right? So that's another shift. Another major shift is retirement. So in 2009, 55% of Canadians imagined themselves being retired at the age of 66 rather, and this is a globe, it's so cool. And in 2012, that had dropped to 27%. So basically a huge drop in the amount of people that imagine themselves retired. I was speaking with somebody yesterday who works in a university setting, and they're saying the amount of deans that are over in the mid-60s are older. So you and I had heard that, demographically, a lot of the baby boomers are going to retire, um, and um, and that would create a tremendous opportunity, right? How many of you heard that? With your hands, those of you who heard that, you were going to retire, you were going to come into a workforce that was all kinds of retirement, baby boomers are going to come out, and there's going to be tremendous opportunities for you. It's better, best than ever. Well, that's simply not true. That more people are staying in the world of work longer. There's been shifts in policies around retirement, and not all of this is bad, by the way. And the reason is, by the way, that number one reason people stay longer and past retirement age, the typical retirement age of our parents, is because they enjoy their work. That's the number one reason. 25% of employees want to be working because they enjoy it. Number two, 21% say to stay mentally active. And the third reason is economic. So to me, there's a very practical reason for enjoying work, because you're probably going to be working longer, right? So, and that's also changing the world of work, that there's multi-generations in our workforce and people are staying longer. So that's shifting things. The final shift that we're seeing is what I call the muster principle. Put up your hands, those of you that feel overwhelmed when you walk into a grocery store of the amount of choices you have. You walk into that, and it is just overwhelming, the amount of choices you have. You go to buy mustard, and there's, so we are overwhelmed with choices. Now, can you imagine if this was a master's program? See, 25 years ago, how many choices a master's program were? Well, they were fairly limited, right? You had a certain amount. Now you literally have hundreds of different choices in master's programs, and different degree programs, and things like that. The same thing with employers. Employers have many different choices of where to get people from. Do they offshore? Do they inshore? Do they bring in contractors? Do they bring in a subcontracting? There are many, many choices. By the way, this is why branding matters, because if you don't have a good personal brand, how you stand out in a very competitive space where companies are looking for a specific type of person and employers are looking for a particular person, and you're looking to brand yourself. So branding not only applies when you're buying mustard, but it applies to you in your career. So all of these things are creating what I call the perfect industrial storm, which the question is, how do you reset yourself from being obsolete in your career? And that's a great question, really. That's really the question. The question is all of these things are creating an industrial storm, right? And some of the manifestations of this, by the way, is you're seeing a higher amount of job dissatisfaction. So 52% of workers require high job dissatisfaction. 42% of workers admit to only working for money. Workplace stress is the number one issue. The average person will have 10 different jobs and 3 different careers before they retire. And by the way, health-wise, if you don't enjoy what you do, you have a high risk of death post-retirement. Same thing with the mid-range. Some of the stats around these changes of, 30% of people are working more than 50 hours a week. Many people are experiencing burnout, about 40%. And about 20% are constantly seeking a new role in a new company. So those are a lot related to the changes. So it's interesting. This Friday we have Halloween. And I think, the question around this is this a scary time or a smart time for you? Because I think with an incredible amount of changes, you need to be smarter about your choices, or you can be afraid, because we're not going to stop any one of those major themes. They're all happening. So the question is, how do we interface into this? This goes back to my original point about not letting really these 3 things drive you. So we talked about earlier about how people make decisions, which is about the market, money, and momentum. Well, if you're letting the market, money, and momentum drive you, with all of these changes that are going on, that's never been a more dangerous strategy to manage your career, because there's so many other things outside of your control that you're reacting, you're not being proactive about this. Really, how do you deal with this? What's sort of the myth around how to react or how to be smart around this? Well, one of the myths is there's a magic bullet. How many of you have done a Myers-Briggs or some sort of online test about what career is the right career for you? Put up your hands, those of you who've done that. This is one of the greatest myths that we have to, which is to me a huge issue, is you will not be able to take a 15-minute or 5-minute online test and address what the right career is easily, right? It is something that will take some time to think through. So you can't just answer a question and boom, you should be a fireman. That's a big, big myth. You are far more complex, and the choices are far more complex than just what color you are or what 4-letter acronym you are. Another great myth around this is that you should be able to do this by yourself. Many people come to us and say, I feel really bad. I haven't figured this out. And I call this the scuba diving principle, right? That how many of you believe you should know inherently how to scuba dive? You should just be able to put a tank on you and jump in the water and away you go. I don't think so, right? So we inherently know that we need to go take some training and some courses and figure out how to learn how to scuba dive because there's a lot of complexity. And that's like work. Work is very multidimensional. There's a lot going above you, below you, around you that are going to impact your success. Another myth around this is I don't have time. I don't have time. I'd like to deal with this, but I don't really have time. And one of the things I like to consider is what I call the 10-minute principle. Taking 10 minutes a day to think about your career over every day of the week, so it's 5 days a week, is 1 hour a week. And you do that 50 weeks a year, is 50 hours a year of career development, just 10 minutes a day. Just taking 10 minutes a day to think about what you're doing. Maybe taking, meeting somebody for coffee every 2 weeks to talk about what they're up to and where they're at and all these types of things. So I think looking at keeping yourself in shape. How many of you have a personal fitness regimen that you do fairly consistently? Put up your hands, those of you that consistently have some sort of a physical fitness. Yeah, about 25% of you. Let me ask you a different question. What's your career fitness look like? Are you putting aside some time on an ongoing basis to retool yourself, to grow yourself, to network effectively, to get out to an event, to even getting to a YorkU Alumnus event, or doing these types of things to build this? Really important principle, keeping yourself in good shape. Another myth is education will help you. Now let me be really clear to you. There's so much substantial support for good education. Absolutely. York is a good partner of ours, and we really, really believe in the value of the right education. But education for education's sake has never been more a bigger investment with greater risk if it's not the right education for you. So I think, again, just assuming that education is going to move you forward without a really good strategy is a large assumption in the way that the world has changed, and the fact that there's really well-educated people globally, and so you have to be really thoughtful about the type of education, right? But the other big myth around this is you can discover the answers on Google. One of the things is, remember, Google does not Google itself into success. The other myth I'd say this is a big another myth around this, is your friends and family have the answer. Put up your hands, those of you that were heavily influenced by friends or family on the career path you're on right now, that you sought out friends and family and they gave you advice and you listened to it and you took some direction. Yeah, big part of you. Again, I'm not always saying that it's bad, but I don't think you rely on your friends and family to make recommendations on health-related matters. I think you seek out a doctor. So I think there's a balance between getting information from friends and family and getting perspective, but also realizing that they may have a bias or an agenda. It's not always bad. It's just recognizing it. So that's what I see happening. The other sort of myth around is that some are luckier. I often hear people say that oh man, they're so lucky. There's a great book, by the way, called The Luck Factor by the author, Richard Wiseman, and he does an excellent job of showing that luck is actually a behavior, and so lucky is not really true. So the question is, are you ready for change? And are you ready to take on these things? And that's part of the reason you're here today. And so to me, how do people make good changes? What is the number one foundational, if they said to me, Alan, what is the most important thing to think about in getting the right career? What would be the first principle to think about? Well, principle number one is the why. It's not who you are. It's not what you should do with who you are. It's not the marketplace. It's not where it is. It's not how to get there. It's actually about why. What do I mean by that? Well, Simon Sinek has a great TED Talk called Start With Why, which is a fantastic TED Talk. And he really classically shows that if you want to make a change in your life, aka in this question, I want to get the right career, the very, very first thing that we sort out with our clients is, why do you want your right career? What is it? What is the real reason? Because change takes energy and time and input. And without it being fueled by a reason, an irrational reason, and your reason, not a reason, but your specific reason, you won't pursue it in the manner that it needs to pursue it, because there's a lot more complexity pursuing change than any other time. So to me, what are some of the reasons why people choose different careers or the right career? Well, to me, number one reason choosing the right career is very practical. That if you want any sort of economic sustainability or any economic predictability, you have to be in the right career. You have to be in the top 20 percentile of what you do. And the only way to be in the top 20% of what you do is that it suits who you are. You can't fake it till you make it. You have to be it and do it, and you'll make it. Right? So let me say that again. You can't fake it till you make it in today's world. Fakes don't work anymore. That's an old idea. You have to be it, do it, and follow through on it. So to me, that's a really important thing, that if you want any sort of economic fulfillment, being in the right career, being in something that suits you, you will naturally get rise to the top 20 percentile. Now, I'm not suggesting do what you love and the money will follow. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it needs to align with who you are, and you need to have a really good strategy. You need to work really diligently at it, and things will flow a lot easier. Another reason it's really important is because you spend more time at work than you do at home. You spend your best hours, your best energy, the best part of your life is in that 50 hours a week that's not at home. So again, this impacts your overall quality of life. And it also affects when you go home, you're going to be a better partner, a better parent, a better friend. You're going to have more energy to do things that are really important to you, right? Another reason this important reason why is for you could be because you want to reach your potential. You want to grow to that point. So to me, that's really important. Another reason why is I believe you'll be a better parent or a better. These are my two kids, and I think and when I'm doing the right career, I'm a much better model to them of what it means to live, right? So okay, Alan, I get the why. So what's the next principle? Well, the next principle number 2 is who. Not what the market wants, but who you are. I remember earlier I said, Myers-Briggs, and many of you said you've taken some sort of an online test. The challenge of that is that it's only 16 categories or one of 4 colors or whatever it is that you're choosing. And again, there's more data here that we need to gather. And so I started thinking about this, and I started realizing that sophisticated brands have a lot in common with us. And the principle that brands use to have success could be applied to our situation. This is where I came up with the model that I use. And it's really what I call the career identity model. And brands have these things. They have a name, they have logo, trademarks, location, packaging, all the things that you and I have. We have every one of these things in our own world, right? We have all of these things. So let me give an example of this, and I'm going to get you to kind of walk you through this model that we think about at a high level. And by the way, you can download this off of our site on our front page. There's a free 15-minute career test. And I'm going to walk you through what I'm thinking and then give you something to work with as a takeaway. And then you can run with it after this, or we can help you do in different ways. So let's talk about some examples of brands and their identity, and then let's apply this to how to choose the right career. So Starbucks, what is the identity of Starbucks? So you want to answer that in the question box. When you think of Starbucks, Starbucks is ... So you as a consumer, when you think of Starbucks, Starbucks is ... Just want to put that down in the question box here when you think of one or two things. Yeah, so Starbucks is personalized and customized. Yeah, I always find yeah, absolutely. It's expensive. Yeah. It's everywhere. It's global. Absolutely. What else is Starbucks? It's a third place for sure. Yeah. High quality, good coffee that works. I like that. Accessible, expensive. Okay. Warm, reliable, comfortable, customer service, not worth it. An experience. Okay, Tim Hortons is. Tim Hortons is. That's a prestige brand, by the way. Starbucks is. Tim Hortons is ... Fast, cheap, generic, yeah. Affordable, absolutely. Economical, right? Quick, down to earth, everywhere, okay. Canadian, addictive, okay. Okay. Ron McLean is. Ron McLean is. Who's Ron McLean? Ron McLean is a jerk, okay. Assertive, level-headed, yeah. Hockey, steady, conservative, sophisticated, absolutely good foil. Okay. Don Cherry is. Don Cherry is. Don Cherry is. Saturday Night Hockey, okay. Don Cherry is. Loudmouth, old, bombastic, bold, funny, annoying, overbearing, okay. Not shy, eccentric, absolutely, okay. Eaton's is. Eaton's is, ... On, yeah. Interesting, right? Legend, extinct, antique, bankrupt. Okay. So let's shift over to the principles that these brands use. And Eaton's I use as a class example. We'll talk about this in a minute of why I think they're dead. And by the way, any one of us can go the way of Eaton's, by the way. We just saw Rim do this, and I see professionals do this, why they go from very relevant to very irrelevant. And it happens much quicker than ever before. By the way, Eaton's at one point was bigger than all these brands combined. in our country. Just keep that in mind, okay? So what do brands do, and how does this relate to choosing the right career? Well, brands have 4 principles they use. They know who they are clearly. They know who and where their market is specifically. They know how to market themselves confidently and consistently. And they know how to evolve and change on a continual basis. All right, so let me walk you through this, knowing who you are clearly. See how quickly you were able to precisely identify 4 brands. It took us all of less than a minute for you to clearly understand and articulate these brands in a very specific way, in a very precise way. Not these generic things. Many of you didn't just say coffee or hockey or retail. You said a very specific set of criteria that you used to describe very precisely those brands. And it was instant. As soon as I said the word, even if you didn't respond, you responded quickly. So how does this relate? Gallup did a Strengths Finders poll. What percentage of people do you think were able to clearly identify their strengths? What do you think the percentage was? Just put in your answer. What do you think percentage of people that were clearly and articulately able to precisely identify their strengths? So we get all kinds of answers here. So the answer is 17%. So AKA 83% of professionals did not know their strengths. Right? They were just kind of working blindly. They may have had a sort of generic sense of it, but they really didn't understand their strengths. So knowing who you are clearly in a sophisticated way, in a precise way, is the #1 principle. And very, very few people have done the right kind of work around that question. They've Googled it, they've taken an online test, but they haven't done the right kind of work of knowing who they are clearly, knowing who and where your market is specifically. And this is an example where Starbucks and Tim Hortons, by the way, are not going after the same market. Starbucks is going after what I call the BMW market, and Tim Hortons is going after the Honda market. They're not going after the same market. So knowing who and where your market is specifically. Same thing with you. Who and where is your market specifically? Just to go back to my point number one, how many of you have worked for a person that was not a very good leader? Put your hands those of you that have worked for a poor leader. Yeah, a large percentage. So how do they get to be a leader? Because again, even companies, by the way, don't do a very good job of knowing their team and knowing their strengths and knowing who to promote. And we get all mixed up around that. Marketing yourself confidently, consistently. Somebody asked this question earlier about this, branding. When is the right time to brand? Well, the right time to brand, by the way, is right as soon as you graduate. In fact, even before you graduate, you should be branding yourself. Branding is an important element. I was doing some work with University of Western Ontario, their law school, and a great example of a young lawyer that was writing blogs and started to brand himself even before he graduated, and as a result of that, ended up in a really good articling situation that moved a certain direction. He understood that branding starts, and it's important. And I call this the Tim Hortons roll up the rim principle. That the roll up the rim has been going this coming year, so next February, so February 2015 will be 30 years they've been running that campaign. Let me say that, 30 years they've been running the roll up the rim campaign. Why are they doing that? Why did they start in the first place? Because they recognized smartly that they needed to keep consistently and confidently out there telling their story. This is why tools like LinkedIn, Twitter. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Put up your hands, those of you that are on LinkedIn. Okay. In fact, Canada has the largest percentage of people on LinkedIn. So, by the way, if you're not connected to me on LinkedIn, I'm going to send you a link, and you can do that. And I'll give you some information there to connect with me. See, I think LinkedIn and Twitter and tools like this are fantastic from a career perspective on marketing yourself. And there's a whole other webinar series, CareerClass series, we do about how to leverage that and brand that properly. And then evolving and adapting on a continual basis. And I call this Eaton principles. That think about it. And think about that little brand called Eaton's, right? So Eaton's had this amazing technology that I could pass it around to my friends and family. I could favorite my page. I could like it. And then I would order it, and it would magically appear at my house. Who does that now? What's the name of the company that does that now? All the things we just talked about. Yeah, you're right, Amazon. So this amazing technology they had was from 100 years ago, or over 100 years ago. It's called a catalog, right? And what Eaton's did not do is it did not evolve itself and didn't stay up with the times. It didn't seem relevant. And that's why it's so important as a professional that you think about new ways and innovative ways and better ways, if you are in the right career, to evolve and adapt and change. Because if you stay static, with all the other changes that are going on in the world, you're going to get nailed. You just are, right? So these 4 principles are the key principles with having a great career. That if you know who you are, then you're able to make better decisions on the right career path. If you know who and where your market is, then you're able to make better decisions on the type of fit or type of organization that's better suited for it. If you're marketing yourself, then you can find opportunity. How many of you have been told that you need to learn how to sell yourself better? That you would agree with that statement. Learning how to sell yourself better has never been more important. Would we agree with that? We would all agree with that, right? Well, let me ask you a different question. How many of you like being sold to? How many of you love being sold to? Do you like that? No. But how many of you like to buy? See, this is my point about not marketing ourselves, but actually not selling ourselves, but marketing ourselves. That's a different scenario to think through, and this is why marketing, not selling, and evolving, right? So, what's your brand? You know, of the 20-odd million people, that Canadians that went to work this morning, what's your brand? What's your brand? Now, you might say, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm a finance person, I'm an administrator, I'm a technology person, I'm a QA person. Would many of you say that about yourself, that that's your brand, that's your title? Your title would be your brand? The problem with that, by the way, or the challenge of that is you're commoditizing yourself. And I call it the taxi principle. That you can be all like all the other taxis, or you can be you can actually have a brand, right? So the biggest thing that I see most people do is they commoditize themselves. They put themselves in categories, and they don't think about that. I'm really good as an accountant at dealing with restructuring. I'm really good at being the innovative accountant, or whatever it might be, right? Having a very specific type of brand. And knowing your brand, often when I ask that question, I'll see it in live audiences, and I usually see it on webinars as well. There's kind of a gap there. And yet when I ask the question about Starbucks or Tim Hortons or Don Cherry or Ron McLean, there is literally no gap. It's like instant, and it's actually embedded deep in their mind what the identity is, what the brand is, and clear it is, and where it fits in their world, and how it can help them, and what the benefits are, right? And to me, when I'm asking in my network of who do I know that's really good at finance, or who do I really know that's really good in a specific area, my brain starts to categorize, just like it does all the other brands it does, and start to think through this, right? So to me, thinking about this is really, really key. Having a clear sense of this is really, really key. And this is a tool we've developed to help you think about this. Because knowing who you are is the starting point to choosing the right career. Because until you have a clear and precise manner of knowing who you are, you won't then be able to choose the right career path, right? You'll have to think about that, right? Thinking about what that looks like and what the different elements are around that, right? So getting a clearer sense of that is really important. So here's a tool we use, and there's 5 elements to the tool. There's talents, values, passions, lifestyle, and ecosystem. There's 5 different substantive elements to the tool, right? And by the way, that's on our site. So it's if you look at our new site, if you scroll down, you'll see there's a 15-minute career test, and you can download that off our site. Okay. So talents, what are they? Well, there's 3 things to talent. So what I'd like you to do is to take a minute, and if you have a piece of paper there online, to think about these 5 areas very quickly, and then we'll think about how to apply this. So talents, what are they? Well, they meet 3 criteria. You enjoy them, you're good at them, and you get good results. You enjoy them, you're good at them, and you get good results. So there are many things we do that we're good at, but we don't necessarily enjoy them. So we do them, we get them done, but you know, we don't really enjoy it. And that's really what I call a skill. I mentioned earlier, how many of you work for somebody who wasn't a great leader? Well, because they had the title, and either they didn't have the talent for it, or they didn't have the skill set for it, right? So title and talent are absolutely related, right? So talents lead to title and vice versa. You have to think about their values. So give yourself a score out of 10. If you're currently working, what your score of 10 would be in your current situation of use of your talents, and how that relates to your title. So score of 10. 10 being highest, 0 being lowest. What does that look like? And that leads to title. Values. What values? So what's important to you? So if you think about the best boss you've ever worked for, and you think got them in your mind, the best boss you've ever worked for? You know what you deeply related to that person more than anything in the research we've used in this? It's about values. That there's a deep connection on the values, that you're in alignment on your values, and that's about fit, right? About fit, who you are and what you do, right? So what is your set of values currently in your current situation? If you're not employed in your previous situation. So give yourself a score out of 10, okay? Passions. Now, what's interesting is 3 great examples of 3 Canadian brands that were built on this principle of passions. Lee Valley Tools was started by a 17-year public servant who was really passionate about tools and was really frustrated about working within the bureaucracy. The Running Room was started by a gentleman who was in the grocery business who discovered that it was really hard to get good input on the right tool, the right running suits. So the Running Room literally started as a room on Thursday night in Edmonton by John Stanton. And Greenpeace was started by a gentleman who was really frustrated with what was going on in the South Pacific. It was co-founded by a Vancouver real estate lawyer. So passions, interesting enough, you look at research around successful careers. There's a great research project by Spencer Stewart, one of the largest executive firms globally. And they look at executives who had extraordinary careers. It's a great book called The 5 Patterns of Extraordinary Careers. And one of the patterns is you're 6 times more successful when you enjoy what you do, when there's some level of engagement. Maybe passion is too strong of a word, by the way, but engagement might be a good word. What engages you? What are you excited about? So passions, and that gives you a sense of direction, a sense of focus, a sense of that. Lifestyle. So give yourself a score out of 10 in passions. What's your score out of 10? Right. Now, what about lifestyle? Well, lifestyle is hours, income, travel, where do you want to live? And this can be related to, we work with a particular client who out of our Edmonton office. So we have 12 offices from Halifax to Vancouver. And one of the clients we work with was out of our Edmonton office. And she was asking the question of, where she was in the right career, but she was thinking about lifestyle issues. And eventually, instead of waiting till she retired to live where she wanted to live, she ended up moving to Victoria and finding an opportunity there sooner. So that was a lifestyle question. That's hours, income, travel. This is what we call a fair trade. So sometimes we'll have a scenario where somebody will choose the lesser career. They'll say, you know what, I'm going to choose something that's less of a career than more of a career because it gives me lifestyle benefits. And then ecosystem, or do consulting, or whatever it might be. I was talking with a client this morning who said, I've been full-time as a director, and now I wanted to continually do this work. I'm in the right career, but I want to do it in a consulting capacity because I'll have more flexibility over lifestyle. And so give yourself a score out of 10 by lifestyle. And then the final one is ecosystem. What do I mean by ecosystem? Well, this is the company culture. What does that look like for you? And what's suited for you? And what's a really good culture for you? And how do you find that? And how do you align that? What's the company culture that's suited for you, that's best suited for you? And that can be related not only to the culture, but also the physicality of it, the way it's designed, the whatever it may be around that. What does that ecosystem look like? And how does that relate to you? So when you look at those 5 elements and you score a score up to 10 in each of them, what is your score? So add up all of those 5 elements, and what are you getting as a score with those 5? So you can have a total of 50. By the way, somebody asked me the question, is the goal 50? No, the goal is not 50. Nobody has the perfect career. That's not even the objective. The issue is really choosing the right career, right? Which is not the perfect career. That's a different question, and it's a question that's unattainable. Choosing the right career is like choosing the right partner. You're not looking for the perfect partner. You're looking for the right partner, right? And choosing the right career is not about the perfect career. It's about the right career, right? So to me, that's really the question. So when you add up the score to 50, what is your score? Do you mind sharing that in the question box here? What did you get as your end result? So how can you use this tool? What do you do with this tool? Well, it gives you a sense of where you're at. So sometimes people come to us, clients will come to us and say, I'm in the wrong career. And what we identify actually is in the right career, but in the wrong situation, or the lifestyle's different. And so look at your score to determine where is the high score and where's the low score. What category has a high score? So example, if you have high score in talents, but low score in ecosystem. So it might be that you're in the right career, but you're in the wrong organization. Or it might be that you have high talents, high ecosystem, but low passion. So you might say, you know what, you're doing the right role, in the right type of company, but maybe it needs to be in a different sector of the company. So maybe you need to move to marketing or finance or a different area of the company that aligns more strongly with things you're interested in, right? And thinking about how to evolve from that. And how to, so this to me is a more multidimensional tool rather than just looking, am I an extrovert? I should be with people. I'm an introvert. I should write. You know, kind of the typical response that you see. And the problem with that is if it's one-dimensional, it doesn't look at the complete picture. And so this is why I created this tool to look at the complete picture, and out of that complete picture, get better data, and out of that data or out of that information, make better decision making. And that's, to me, about the right career, is understanding in a more fuller way or more integrated way what the right career is based upon multi-dimensionals, multiple needs around you. So the question here is, what do you suggest for someone who has a job career that they enjoy, but is passionate about something else that you'd like to pursue and fearful of taking risks to plunge into this new passion for fear that it may not work out? Well, I think one of the things that I encourage, and it happened with it's a very good question, because it often is the question where people say, you know, I kind of like what I do, but I'm not sure I want to make the plunge. So I'm going to come back to that answer that in a couple of minutes, and we're going to open this up for more questions, by the way. So I will address that question, because it's a very good question, Vito. So what do you do next? Where do you go from next? Well, you have to be thinking about this as what I call the concept of building blocks. Building blocks, that you want to be looking at this concept of who am I and what are the different elements I need, the 3 to 5 different building blocks, to think about how to take steps towards something, whether it's starting something part-time or doing something on the side or going back to school. The neat thing about the world we live in today, by the way, is unlike in the past 25 years ago, if you wanted to pursue a certain path, it was almost like all your chips had to go in. And now there's so many ways of launching and going in a different direction, whether it's in education or starting a business or whatever. You can start taking baby steps towards that. Another principle to think about how to apply this in your world is to think globally, drink locally. What do I mean by that? Well, in our Calgary office, I was leaving, I was flying out, and I noticed in the airport this sign, and I thought about this, that, you know, we need to be paying attention to global shifts, as I mentioned earlier, all the things that are going on, and then think, how do I apply this in my situation, in my category, in my area, in my profession, whatever it might be. How many of you were a Brownie or Scout or involved in that growing up? Put up your hands, those of you that were Brownie, Scout, or Cub growing up. What did you learn growing up? What's one lesson that stuck with you as it relates to this topic today? And interesting enough, Scouts is one of our clients, so we work with the leadership team there. Yeah, and I think that's right, to do your best, the teamwork, and helping each other, right? Those principles, right? Particularly doing your best, being a good person, right? Having good values, right? Confidence, right? Getting training. You know, there's so many things that, and by the way, Scouts and Brownies are the largest leadership development company in the country, by the way. So they develop more leaders than any other organization in the country, by the way, over the last 20 years, problem solving, right? So all of those things relate to those values that relate to being a really good employee. Because if you're doing your best and you're a team player and you have confidence or you're helping each other, all those sorts of things, maybe it won't work out in your situation, but I can absolutely guarantee you that you have a good reputation in your industry, and that's going to help you move forward in a different way. So I think that those principles have never been more important. And also just thinking about how to be prepared. See, moving forward in your career, a lot of it's about preparation, right? Thinking three-dimensionally and thinking this about it, thinking about Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Your network, thinking about that and how network you're. And your network, by the way, is your net worth. People talk about online, you know, we talk about Workopolis and Monster and LinkedIn and all those sorts of things. Fantastic, right? Never forget the purpose of social media is social, not media. And too many people get caught up in media and not enough in social. Remember about that. Optimism. You know, I said earlier about these changes, right? You would think that maybe I'm not an optimist, but I'm actually an optimist. But I'm what I call a pragmatic optimist, that I look at things in a very practical way, but look for the opportunity within it, right? That's a very important principle. I think another really important principle is having enough space in your life for other things in your life. You know, I was down on the beaches this summer, and I was down there, and I saw this guy blowing bubbles, and he's, you know, substantive big bubble thing, and another person behind him, you kind of can't quite see, but she's in a kayak. I thought about that, that our work needs to be integrated in our life, and it can't displace everything in our life. But I find so many people that they give their work their all, and it doesn't leave a lot extra left for their life. And so to me, one of the benefits, by the way, of having the right career is you have energy, time, resources, space to do other things that are important to you. And they don't all have to be revenue generating or career development oriented. They can be volunteer, whatever they may be, and I think that's really important. Remember, the best things in life are analog, including relationships, including work, not digital. So don't get so caught up in digital tools and social media, all this stuff. Remember, it's about relationships, relationships, relationships. In real estate, there's three principles, right? Location, location, location. You know what the three major principles of work are? Relationships, relationships, relationships. You need to obviously do good work on those other things, but again, the more substantive quality relationships you build in your life, the bigger it's going to be, and the more opportunities there's going to be as a result of that. The final thing to think about is what I call the coming soon maybe. What do you think is on this lot now? What do you think is on this lot? How many of you put up your hands think there is a car wash or a pet spa there? Mm-hmm. That's good. I'm glad you're right. Nothing. So David says nothing. How do we know it's nothing? What is the one word that tells us that there's nothing going to be on this lot ever? Well, at least from this organization. Yeah, maybe. The reason I say this, how many of you are maybe going to think about what the right career is? How many of you are maybe going to get some support from a coach or do some assessment or download our assessment tool, or maybe going to have that conversation with their boss about getting some training, or maybe going to think seriously about this opportunity, or maybe going to talk about their partner about the frustration at work and what this looks like. See, I think if we're all honest, we've all said this. This is what I love about this slide. I didn't Photoshop this, by the way, because we've all done this. We've all been very, very guilty of this in different formats of our life, where there's something important to us, but really we're approaching it in a maybe. And that's why I said earlier about the why. You know, what the why is, because if you know the why will move you from a maybe to how do I move forward, right? So to me, shifting your thinking about this and making this a priority is really key. And I love what Terry Raleigh says about this, not with a bang, not with a whimper, but my own skill hand. See, it's nothing to do with the changes I talked about globally and economically in China and India and all that. You know what? People still come to this country in Canada, by the way, and do incredibly well. And other people come to this country and struggle with a very similar skill set. And I've seen that. By the way, I'm a first-generation Canadian. I immigrated with my family from Ireland. So I've lived the immigrant story, and I've experienced the immigrant story, and I am an immigrant. So to me, what's interesting about this is that it is our own skilled hands that will determine whether we're going to be successful or not. It won't be York's responsibility or the government's responsibility or Stephen Harper's responsibility or a new prime minister, whatever it might be, right? They have very, very little impact overall, to be honest, right? At the end of the day, it's really important. And I love this by James Carville, who is President Clinton's campaign manager, said, outside a person's love, the most sacred thing we have is their labor. And when you combine those things, that's pretty unique. And that, to me, is what this matters. One of the great quotes we have from one of our clients that I'm most proud about, who went through our program, why this is important, is everything in my life is centered in mind. See, when you're in the right career, the rest of your life reflects that. And there's an authenticity to it, a genuineness to it, and there's all kinds of benefits. Is it easy or simple? No. This is a complex question, and there's complexity to the journey. We'll never deny that, and I always say it publicly. But I do think it's absolutely worth it to pursue this for a whole bunch of both practical and philosophical reasons. So I'm going to open this up for questions, but what is one takeaway from today that you would like to implement? So what is the one idea? I don't want you to go yet. I know the tendency right now is to get off and go do something. But before you go, share with me one takeaway from today that you think can help you as you think about this. What is one takeaway from today that you want to do something with? Not maybe do something with, but absolutely do something with. So I don't want to hear your maybes, but share that within the question box. One idea from today or one thought from today that you that is fresh and maybe healthy or a different way of thinking about this. By the way, how can we help you? Well, we actually have a number of different programs. So we have a partnership with alumni with York. We're the only company we recommend to the alumni exclusively on this topic and this question. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah, Start with why, absolutely. Getting a sense of why. I like that. Market yourself and evolve continually. Absolutely. Thinking about that. Can you share the slide deck? Absolutely. I can. I will actually. I will be posting it on our CareerClass, so I'm happy to do that. Visual of my branding features. That's a great idea. I like that. 10 minutes of career development each day. I like that. Think about my lifestyle. Take the 15-minute career test. One takeaway from today is going to implement is working on my branding, which is excellent. And I think that's so key. What is my personal brand, and why is that important? I love this one, by the way. This is from Oliver. Pause, review where I am and where I want, probably where I want to go, or where I want. Let's sneeze. Knowing who I am. Yeah, I love that. Margaret has another comment in here. We're too fixated on the media and we forget the social. Absolutely, that's the key. And also, the other thing I would say about media is, one other comment about media is, remember what you read in a newspaper about the economy is absolutely and totally biased towards the negative. I'm not saying there aren't challenges out there, there aren't changes, but remember, in the G20, we have one of the strongest economies, and the newspaper or media only gets better ratings when it has negative reviews, not when it's talking about the good things that are going on, right? So remember that. Remember when you're dealing with this, at the media, you're seeing that. Find your passion and figure out what that means. Yeah, there's another thing, creating more options for myself. One of the interesting principles, one of our coaches said in Vancouver, it's very powerful. There's not very many jobs out there, but there's never been more opportunity. Let me say that again. There's not as many good jobs out there, but there's never been more opportunity out there. So it's about creating opportunity for yourself. All right, so there's another question. Due to my score, I realized that I want to continue my career path due to my talent, but in a different environment, which is great. Mary, that's a really important principle. Many people come to us. I'm going to open this up for questions, so for those that have questions, I'm going to go back to a few of the questions that came in, and I'm going to stay on the line for a bit. For those that need to go, I understand some of you will need to go, feel free to reach out to us on our website. There's a number of different tools you can get on our website, CareerJoy.com. So you can look at our videos and our services, and there's tons of information on there. Feel free to connect with you on LinkedIn, as I mentioned earlier. I'll send that out again for those that did respond to that. And also, you can like us on Facebook, and on our LinkedIn, we also have a corporate LinkedIn page. So there's just different ways to connect with us and think about how we can stay connected with you and provide you information on an ongoing basis. Maybe help your 10-minute today principle in a very simple way, right? So question was asked earlier is how do I move forward in a different direction when I'm currently employed and I'm not really that interested? That's a great question, right? It's a question that many people have about, how do I move forward? And we actually have a specific program called the Career Identity Program to address this specific question of what is the right career and how do you move forward, right? And so to me, one of the things to think about is baby steps. So sometimes, people will, bet the farm, and people they'll quit their job and they'll start something brand new at the gate and pursue this, and that's great. But for most people, that's not really going to work, right? This is my earlier point about taking baby steps, about taking steps towards something versus necessarily betting the farm. Sometimes you will, and I will recommend that. And many people say to us, I'm kind of afraid to come to see you because I think you're going to tell me to quit my job tomorrow and do it. And we're not. We wouldn't do that. We're going to work with you to think about this. But one of the things to be thinking about is how can you pursue this in a way that's smart? Whatever your interests are, is how can you start something small? And right now with technology, with online, with whatever it might be, you're thinking about services. You can start something on the side and let it kind of build and grow momentum. It doesn't always have to happen right out the gate. And you can start to work on a plan or partner with somebody. The other way you can de-risk the decision is go with somebody else who's passionate about what you do and pool your resources and pool your time and come together with that person to reduce some of the risk. So that's another way you can deal with, I want to pursue a different direction, but I don't know if I want to take all the risk all at once. Other things like franchises and other types of business models that are out there that are really good. And so we asked the question, where are you located? Well, we're located right across the country. We have offices from Halifax to Vancouver. Another person asked the question, is your work all one-on-one? Yes, all of our coaching programs are one-on-one coaching. They're They're right across if you know others, by the way, who are struggling with this question, that's the other thing I'd ask is point them to our site and point them to what we're doing as well if they want support this way. What are the ranges of kinds of services you have? So they range in a variety of things, from branding work. So we do a lot of work around branding, helping clients to really get a precise sense of that and think about that and their online brand and what this looks like. Is something that we do a lot of work with. Branding. The same with job search. We'll work with clients in job search and resume building and things like that. So there's different ways. The question asked is, how do you reset yourself from an obsolete career? That's a great question. Well, part of the reset sometimes could be going back to school. So sometimes it could be a reset, sort of going to a program and saying, you know what, I'm in a certain area and what I need to do is get recertified in a whole brand new area. And part of the reset, by the way, is working your network. It's hard just to send out a resume and just to reset yourself. But I think part of what you need to be doing is also resetting your network and expanding your network and finding people in the networks you're interested in and exploring and connecting with. It's really important. Question is, do you do corporate work? Yes, we have a number of corporate clients, as I mentioned earlier, and we have over 300 corporate clients across the country that we work with on different types of career transition elements and leadership development, workshops, and things like that. So some of you may have a learning development budget, and you can direct that directly to us, and we have different ways of formatting that. So yeah, we do that. The question is, how does one market themselves effectively when first starting off in a career? Is the personal brand a way to stand out in your resume and cover letter? Good question. The best way you can start to market yourself is volunteering. See, a brand is not a resume and a cover letter. That is one element of a brand. So it's the same, reason that John Tory did not become mayor of Toronto because of his signs. He became mayor of Toronto because he's been working at becoming mayor of Toronto for a very long time, right? And he's been building his brand, his networks, the different people on his team. And whether you like him or not, putting that aside, it doesn't matter. But we do know that Olivia Chow didn't do a very good job of marketing herself in this campaign, and John Tory did a much better job of his messaging and thinking about that. So part of it is understanding it. Marketing starts right out the gate. So you can be at university and building your brand, getting involved with committees and volunteering and helping your professors and writing blogs. And, and I think too many people go to school for education, but they don't get involved in community. And one of the huge benefits, or big benefits, of being in an organization like York or being a large alumnus like York is the access and the type of network that York has. Take advantage of that and find out how you can be involved and how you can contribute. Another way to do it is get involved with your alumni association. They're always looking for volunteers, and they're always looking for people to connect with. And you know what? I give the example of one of our clients that got involved in the Alumnus Association in Vancouver. Out of that led to him being on a committee. Out of that led to a job offer and him completely shifting career paths in different sectors. And it started volunteering, right? So volunteering, building a brand, blogging, all those sorts of things can never start soon enough. And your brand is not a resume and LinkedIn. That's not your brand. That's just the sign, right? How do you help brand someone who may be viewed negatively due to having a learning disability? Disclose or not disclose to employers or clients? I don't think you need to disclose that. I don't think that that's a disclosure issue for a whole bunch of reasons. And I think the good news about many scenarios is that there's more, particularly in certain types of employers, they're actually looking for people with learning disabilities and disabilities and different challenges because of the way that the taxation policies and also that they look at their stats, and banks look at this, and big companies look at stats around people with different challenges and want to make sure that they're being a good employer that way. So typically what I'd recommend is starting looking at larger employers, because if you do have these challenges or learning disabilities, some of them can be more flexible in that area. Great. Other questions? What sectors do you focus on? So we have clients across sectors. We have clients right across sectors, from corporate to private profit to government. We're on the government standing offer. So again, if you're on you're a government employee and you're looking for a learning development budget, we can do that with you. We're on the standing offer, and we do that. We have a number of different government departments we work with one-on-one. So What's the cost of your service? So it range. We have resume services that range anywhere between $300 and $800, and we have programs that range anywhere from $700 and up, depending on what we're doing with you. So, and yes, it is all one-on-one. So, great. So, quick thing, we actually are going to have we have another webinar tonight. So, if you know other people who are looking to miss today and wanted to join us tonight, refer them on to tonight. And like I said, if we can help you, reach out to our team, go on our web page, or on our CareerJoy page, or refer over to our Facebook page, or our LinkedIn page. We have lots of resources there to help you. And our whole goal is work made better. That's really our goal. And we believe any situation can be made better. It's like anything in your life. You can make your health better. You can make your relationship better. You can make your finance better just by working at it. And our model is about work made better. Terrific. Well, have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much. And there's another question. If you've been a stay-at-home mom for 6+ years, is it better to leave your last job at the top of the resume, or that you've been caring for children at the top? Yeah, for sure. I think you can. So that I think you can talk about your current situation, because obviously there's going to be a gap there, right? And there's many employers that recognize the value of being, stay-at-home for the last 6 years. And you might as well. There's no secret. There's going to be a huge 6-year gap. Or you can go to a chronological, or rather than a chronological, more of a skills-based resume that talks about skills. The other challenge I'd say is use your network. So if you're a stay-at-home mom, then think about the care centers, your volunteer scenarios, your Brownies Club, all these types of things, because you want to leverage those networks. Yeah, the invite tonight, somebody asked about Eva about invite tonight. You'll have to register online for that. You can go to our site. Terrific. Okay, well, have a great day, everyone, and we look forward to supporting you, and we wish you best in your journey. And again, if we can help you at all, then feel free to reach out to us. And remember, work made better is life made better. And to be honest, Canada made better as well. And the more people that enjoy what they do, the better it is for all of us. So have a great day, everyone. Cheerio.